Just in case you're interested, we made it into number 189 on the Apple Podcasts charts for Taiwan under politics.
No
and
shit.
Apple Podcast charts for politics for Cyprus.
Who the
So
fuck is listening to us?
Shout out to all our fans in Taiwan and Cyprus.
I always knew Big John was international.
Look, we're not just in Canada. We're not just in North America. We're in Cyprus. We're in Taiwan. We were in the charts in Italy for a while and Australia. So thank you to all of our international listeners. Welcome back to Appodlachia. Got a hell of a show for you today. And we're starting off with a fun story. Because why not? Got some heavy subject matter coming.
Oh my god, I know why. I remember why we're on the podcast chart.
Is there a reason?
Yes. Well, I believe there is.
Okay.
Taiwan has one of the last Ponderosa buffets.
Holy shit, you're right.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Then that's it.
And it's a legit Ponderosa. Like, it's not just like a name.
Yeah. Oh, we looked it up. It is 100% legit. It's still there. We are looking for funding. We are looking for funding. If someone wants to sponsor our trip to Taiwan, we will live stream a show from the Taiwanese Ponderosa, and I will enjoy every goddamn minute of it.
Look at that logo.
It's legit. It's legit. It is not a reproduction. It is a legit franchise, and
there's the board.
It couldn't survive in Parkersburg, West Virginia, but it can survive in Taipei, Taiwan, and God bless them for it.
And now I know why we made the charts. Okay, that makes sense.
To our Taiwanese listeners, if you have a connection to the Taiwanese Ponderosa, please let us know. And to our listeners who are independently wealthy or have trust funds, if you want to finance our trip to Taiwan, please also let us know. We will make it an event of the century. We will put Appalachia on the map in Asia.
I promise this. I will go. I will find the brick house hoodie and the brick house matching pants with the large pockets, and I swear to God, I'll smuggle cookies out of that restaurant.
And we will not declare them in
I
customs.
am not declaring. The only thing I'm declaring is that they're good as shit.
The only thing I'm declaring is those 18 Huskies, because you can't get by security with those.
No, you can't.
I am not joking. I am a dead ass serious about this. Our legacy hinges on our ability to go to this Ponderosa.
I just want to get, this is, I guess, kind of selfish, but still in a fun way. I want to get big enough to do a tour, but we only tour at Ponderosa steakhouses. So we only have 5 stops.
Probably
we only
the
do
most
5 stops.
expensive tour in America, but I love it. I think it's great.
we get the back room. Like, we have just a nice little shindig.
We do a live show. We break every 20 minutes to refill the plate.
Oh, and I have to eat.
That's our ad break. That's our ad break. So.
Ad break.
I fucking love. I'm dead serious. If people have money that they want to just irresponsibly spend, finance our trip to Taiwan. Perhaps this is a little forward of me to suggest, but will we be the reason for peace and unity between China and Taiwan? Who's to say? Perhaps.
I want to say yes. If I'm being honest, I want to say yes. I believe...
We're the fucking State Department. If this actually happened, which I'm gonna say there's a greater than 0% chance that it could, because there are some listeners that listen to us. They have money. If this happens, the State Department will be in contact, and we will have an envoy sent with us. I am not making this shit up. People think like I'm stone cold sober talking about this.
I'm down, dude. I'll go to Taiwan. I will try to bring unity, and we can look. I've always said there is no argument in this world that we can't settle over Ponderosa chicken wings. I've always said that.
That's what a buffet in general is. It is the symbol of unity.
And
it's people coming together, sharing the bountiful resources produced by these hands of the workers of this country.
We'll cut the ham together.
Together,
and
yes.
serve it as a unified front, showing them that everything's okay here.
This will be our Oslo Accords.
This will be another something I can't think of right now.
This will be our Camp David Accords, our Oslo Accords. This will be our summit, Sermon on the Mound, Sermon on the Buffet. There's a lot that this will be. And I'm just going to say, to put a button on this, I'm dead ass serious. If somebody wants to, thank you, Heidi, help coordinate this, finance this, sponsor us. We'll say sponsor us. We'll give you free publicity for a year.
Shit, yeah. For a year, you send me T-shirts of your company. I wear them to Taiwan.
Yeah, hell yeah, yeah.
We'll
be like Dennis Rodman when he wore like weed coin shirts to North Korea. When he was pushing those shit coins at that time.
Yeah, and we will not push shit coins.
No, we won't. We won't do that. We're not into crypto, but any other scam, we'll do it for you. That's fine.
Sure. Hey, if a pyramid scheme gets me to Taiwan to eat Ponderosa, I'm down.
Hell yeah. Fucking
little MLM.
Give me your Rodan and Fields. So, anybody that wants to sponsor our trip to Taiwan to go to Ponderosa and record a live show, please let us know. info@appodlachia.com. Otherwise, why don't we get into the very serious story breaking in West Virginia this week?
Breaking news.
We're starting out with our intro, Roo on the Loose. I thought this is a joke when it popped up in our Discord. It was not, and it was reported on by several reputable outlets in West Virginia. A kangaroo got loose in Logan County, West Virginia. There were pictures. It was spotted hopping along Mud Fork Road near Verdonville. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, I have no idea. The kangaroo reportedly belonged to a local family and had escaped earlier in the morning. And it surprised drivers and temporarily disrupted traffic, which I think in some respects is delightful. Perhaps this family shouldn't be owning an exotic animal, but it is kind of fun. Where do you stand on exotic animal ownership?
Not for it. Not a huge fan, to be honest, because it seems like more and more the people who own them are the ones who shouldn't. Yeah. That's like they're the people who want it. Now, I will say I'm okay if if they save an animal and are doing it correctly with on-site vets, stuff like that, like real type shit like that, I'm fine with. But not just owning it to own it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know how you can credibly raise a kangaroo in West Virginia with just a private family owner, but who knows? I don't know. West Virginia, it turns out, is fairly permissive in this. I was looking up some of the state laws. You don't even need a permit to own a kangaroo in West Virginia.
I did not know that.
Most states, if you can own one, which it's very few, most states you need a permit. I don't know. I guess it's a kangaroo permit,
I would
an exotic animal permit. West Virginia, they don't give a shit as long as you abide by and comply with the applicable animal welfare standards. You are allowed to have, rear, raise, cultivate a raccoon, or a kangaroo. I don't know why I said raccoon. Wow. Kangaroo.
You know what's gonna happen though, right? The most West Virginia thing's gonna happen. 2 kangaroos are gonna Adam and Eve it, and we are gonna have just a massive kangaroo population. We're gonna be hunting kangaroos in no time. That's what's gonna happen here.
I don't hate the idea of a massive kangaroo population in theory.
Yeah, in theory, maybe.
It does sound fun, and it sounds like West Virginia could be the Australia of North America.
Yeah, but have you ever seen the movie Kangaroo Jack?
No.
I mean, he was kind of a dick. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, well, he sounds like an outlier.
Okay, well that might be true.
If a kangaroo population were to just somehow populate out of the blue in West Virginia, I think it'd be kind of fun. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, teachers. So this came up a couple weeks ago, and I take particular issue with this, which is it's just bullshit. Crowdfunding is banned for teachers in certain counties in West Virginia, including Monongalia County, where Morgantown is. This was brought up because Space Gal, our friend Emily Calandrelli, raised attention to the issue. So,
astronaut Space Gal.
Yeah, soon to be astronaut Space Gal. We're very excited about it, and I'm gonna have her on as soon as she does that to talk about her experience. It's gonna be really cool. So basically, this policy applies to. This is what the policy specifically states in Monongalia County, based on their Board of Education. The policy applies to any form of crowdfunding utilizing an online service or website-based platform for the financial benefit or gain of the district, be it a specific classroom, grade level, department, etc. The board does not permit or sanction the use of crowdfunding. Why does this matter? Because public education is chronically underfunded in this country. Schools and classrooms are chronically underfunded, and it's often up to the teachers to front the money for classroom supplies. Just ask literally any teacher in this country, including my sister, who is a teacher in West Virginia. Oftentimes they're digging into their own savings, their own money, finances, to pay for the basic things that they use in their classrooms. And so a lot of teachers, I think rightly so, will take to creating things like Amazon wish lists and send those to friends, family, if they've got a social media following, followers, rich benefactors, billionaires, people that are going to fund our Taiwanese Ponderosa experience, those types of people, to help them buy stuff for their classrooms, because it's a lot of money and they want to give their kids the best experience and the best educational opportunities possible. But for some reason, the Monongalia County Board of Education says, no, you're not allowed to do this. John, your thoughts?
Well, it's twofold. One, we have gone through so many years of teachers having to pay for supplies, buy things to, cover for their students, do all of these things, essentially take care of these kids well beyond what they should have to do, especially being financially obligated to. And second, West Virginia has historically underfunded public education throughout all of our lifetimes. It's been an issue. I mean, if you remember back in early 2024, they couldn't figure out the education budget because they were so worried about the COVID clawback that it was like $352 million the federal government was talking about clawing back because of being misspent. That could have been spent on education, but then they messed up the entire education budget. Then you have county level doing stuff like this, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I'd like to hear their justification. Maybe there's something we're missing, but it seems like a very odd bureaucratic stance, like since we can't control what you're spending it on, we don't want you to have it, is what the feeling I've always gotten from something like this. So I would love to hear an explanation.
Yeah, I would too. The only justifications that I've seen are that, well, they don't want teachers using this to get things like MacBooks and stuff, or $2,000 laptops, which Emily rightly pointed out that she shared a bunch of lists on her Twitter page, none of which had expensive laptops. They were very basic things that teachers needed. And first of all, Emily deserves a tremendous amount of credit for bringing attention to this. I don't know. I mean, I would be interested in knowing what other districts do a similar policy. Is this just isolated to Monongalia County, or are other counties doing this as well? I asked my sister, and she said that she didn't think that there was one for Wood County, but she couldn't verify that. But basically, what happened is this issue, partly because Emily raised it, was brought up at the county board meeting, which was, I think, about a week ago. Today, we're recording this on August 19th. The board took up the issue and heard from a bunch of people who expressed their discontent with this because it's a ridiculous policy. However, recently, I think as recent as of today or yesterday, the superintendent sent out an email basically saying that, schools do in fact have all the resources that they need and that teachers should take advantage of a discount program with local businesses that they have, which is not paying for supplies. It's giving a discount, which involves teachers using their own money still. And Emily pointed out that some of the things were not for classroom supplies at all. It was for like yoga and massages and stuff, which is fine, good program, what have you, but that does not resolve the core issue here. And I don't know, it's just ridiculous that something like this even exists as a policy. There are so many barriers for teachers to just get the basic things they need to make a classroom function in the 21st century. And I just don't understand why we're penalizing people that already, are given barely scraps to work with.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it just feels like I said, people trying to have more control than they really, I guess, do, or I don't even know how to explain it. It just seems like a board who's trying to essentially over control education, or even just little things like this. Doesn't make any sense to me. And why is it such a, like, we have, does this mean that they don't do things like the fill the bus, I'm talking about, where everybody goes and drops off supplies for, kids who need it? Or I know that like some places like Old Man Rivers will like give out start of the year education bags. What is the difference here? If I want to give cash to a teacher or buy the supplies directly from a wish list that they created, because it turns out they know their students better than I do, why is that an issue?
First of all, I think they still do those programs, I'm pretty sure. Second, I don't know. I don't get it. The only explanation that I can come up with is that it's not equitably or equally dispersed across classrooms. It's one teacher doing it, but at the end of the day, you're already asking them to finance a lot of their classroom supplies. So that's already going to be an issue for teachers that maybe they have more means than other teachers. So I don't know. I just think it's ridiculous. I think that we're already robbing teachers of so many tools to make classrooms effective. Teacher morale is already extremely low in West Virginia, as it is in many other places. This is only going to make it worse. I mean, the fact that they have to crowdfund in general is a huge problem.
That's embarrassing.
Like the fact that teachers have to beg people just to buy classroom supplies so that they can teach. That's
embarrassing.
And they can make learning interesting. Yeah, it's embarrassing. It's a shame. We have a public education system that we're clearly incapable. Well, we are absolutely capable of funding. It's clear that the government doesn't want to fund it.
And I just want to point something out too. Like a lot of people that listen to this probably most that listen to this podcast and us talk about how we don't like the voucher system. We don't think it's good for education. We think that it takes from public schools, things like that. But when we do stuff like this and we underfund public education as much as we do, which some of it's on purpose, don't get me wrong, it allows for more justification of things like vouchers, because they are able to look at it and go, look, they can't even do this right. So when you do that and you strip away the ability to get these necessities for classrooms, it's going to blow up in your face as a board of education, because some politician somewhere is going to flip it and say, look, look at all the stuff they have to beg for, and two, they're not even able to do that, so these kids are going without. Why wouldn't we have a voucher system? So that's exactly what's going to happen here, and that's going to be the problem. It should have, and this was just something that didn't need to be touched. Like, what's the point here?
It's petty.
It is.
And perhaps it's all by design. It very easily could be. There's a lot of things, a lot of policies that are designed to undermine public education. I'm not going to say this is one of them, but I think it's short-sighted and it's stupid. Yeah. So if you live in Monongalia County, I strongly encourage you to reach out to whoever your school board representative is and voice your concern for this. And if you're not, check with the local board of education that's in whatever area you live in. Make sure they don't have a policy like this, because it is incredibly ridiculous.
1,000%. Get on the horn.
Get on the horn.
Hello, hello.
Hey, good morning.
How you doing?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. You know,
Wonderful.
August in South Carolina, it's nice and humid and disgusting. So,
Oh, I live in Florida now, so I totally get the humid, disgusting, miserable summer feeling. I 100%
oh yeah.
understand.
Oh yeah. Where are you at in Florida?
At the moment, Gainesville. Not sure how long we'll be here, but we're there for now. Where in South Carolina are you?
I'm in Greenville, which is up in the mountains. I mean, I'm technically right in Appalachia still, though it feels a lot more like the South than Appalachia.
Yeah, I've never been there, but I've heard it's really beautiful.
It is. It's a lovely city. I've lived here for 9 years, and since I got here, the whole city has changed. It's grown. There's more stuff, there are more people, and that's only going to continue at this point.
Yeah. Is that close to where Clemson is, or am I
Mhm.
mistaking that?
I'm
Okay.
about 45 minutes from Clemson, and I'm about an hour south of Asheville.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not spent much time there, but I've heard it's really pretty. I had a friend from high school that moved there, and he was just obsessed with it. That's cool. I love I think this is perfect timing, by the way, because I think is your book, is the 20th still the scheduled publication date?
Yep.
Perfect, because I think that's when we're gonna put this episode out. So that'll be awesome.
Oh, that would be super awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I usually keep these interviews fairly informal, so if you want, we can go and get started. I When you
Sure.
sent over the information about this book, it was really interesting because I don't think I've really ever heard of a novel that tries to capture this type of subject matter,
Mm-hmm.
and it's certainly very like relevant to our current day, especially with a lot of the things going on in our country, and especially in Appalachia. And so, first, I'd like to ask you, because you mentioned that you based it in part on like a fictional town in Appalachia, and I believe you mentioned that it's kind of based on where you grew up in West Virginia. Where was
Mm-hmm.
that, and what can you tell me about it?
So I grew up in Mannington, West Virginia. It's in Marion County, a little about 45 miles from Morgantown. If anybody knows the Farmington slash Mannington mine disaster
Mm,
in the late 60s, that's where I grew up. So it's a little town of about 1,000 people. It used to be a booming oil town. Then it was a booming coal town, and now it's a fracking town. So it's gone through a lot of. It's a town made up of extractive industries. I know when you a while ago you had Nima Avashia on here, and she talked about being from like the chemical plant part of West Virginia, and I'm
yeah.
very much from the extractive industries part of West Virginia. So the town in the book is called Brickton, and it's made up of a few different towns in that area. So Mannington, but it's a little bigger than Mannington, so a little bit closer to Fairmont, which is they actually have stoplights and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
right. Those fancy things.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I remember talking to Nima about that, and that was a very relatable thing because John and I, who unfortunately can't make it, he's got to work, but we're from Parkersburg, and that's like coined as Chemical Valley because it's where the DuPont Washington Works plant was, where they made Teflon and then dumped a bunch of chemicals into the water. So totally get
Yeah.
that for sure. Um,
Hmm.
so, what made you write a book about this? And actually, if you could talk to us a little bit about the subject matter, I know a little bit about it because I read some of the material you sent, but I'm wondering if you can tell listeners about what this book is about. It's a novel, and it talks about a really pressing social issue, but in the context of a fictional Appalachia universe.
Yeah. So the Stonecatchers is actually the short answer is it's about the aftermath of a school shooting. It's about what happens to survivors immediately afterward, and then also once media interest wanes. More expansively, it tells the story of four people who are at a community college in a classroom, and when the shooter busts through the barricade on their classroom door, they try to disarm the shooter, but in an attempt to disarm him, they actually kill him.
Oh
So
wow.
Yeah, so this happens in the first chapter where they kill him. And on the one hand, they are heroes. They have stopped this shooter from going further. They ended it. They are like media darlings. And on the other hand, they have to live with the fact that they killed a person. That person might have been trying to kill them, but they still, at the end of the day, they have blood on their hands. And how do you live with that? How do you live with what you've done? And how do you just live with the trauma of living through that? So the book actually follows those four characters who killed the shooter and follows them all the way through the first 6 months afterward.
Wow. Yeah. It is a novel, it is fiction, but I'm sure it's so real for so many people. How
Mhm.
how did you decide to tackle this subject matter?
Um, so I teach at Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina, and when I about a year after I got there in 2016, we had active shooter training, and it's this really weird training. I think more and more people have gone through it now. But what they did was the campus police came into a classroom with a bunch of English and modern languages professors, and they said, okay, here's how we used to teach this. They said, what we used to tell everybody is turn the lights off and hide. So they had us pretend to be the people in a classroom and they had us turn the lights off and hide. Then they had a police officer walk in with an airsoft gun and he shot all of us like as we were hiding in the dark. And it was just little plastic pellets, but it was
Wow.
horrifying. It was and you know it's fake, nothing's really happening, but it's still terrifying even as it's happening. So then after he'd killed all of us, he turned the lights on and said, "Okay, we don't teach that anymore for that exact reason. So what we teach you now is if you can get out of the classroom, you should get out, climb out a window, whatever. And if you can't, you barricade the door. If the You turn the lights off, barricade the door. If the shooter makes it through, you start throwing things at the shooter. So you throw, and I remember they said, you can't aim a gun if you have a stapler flying at your head, which is true.
Right.
The last thing they said was, four people should come at like you should get or five volunteers in your classroom. You should have five volunteers, two people for legs, two people for arms, and one for face. And each person should go up and grab that body part that they volunteered for. And the person who goes for the face should try to gouge the shooter's eyes out with their thumbs. And it was just horrifying advice, helpful advice, but really horrifying. And I went home, and either that night or a couple nights later, I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, well, what happens if they can't stop? Like, once you get into that frenzy of hurting someone, what happens if we have these people who go into that frenzy and they just beat the person to death? And that, I mean, it came to me in the middle of the night. I remember I lived in an apartment in town and I ran to the other end of my apartment in the middle of the night, grabbed some paper and wrote down just that scene, ugly notes for that scene, basic notes. And that was the beginning. So, and I just couldn't get that scene out of my head. And I didn't want that to be the end scene. I didn't want it to be that the shooting ends the book. I wanted to ask the question of what happens after.
Hmm.
How do people live after that? So I started with that shooting and then we go on from there.
That's such an interesting premise because it's something that's not often talked about or explored. But I think first of all, the fact that we even need active shooter drills in schools
Yeah.
is horrifying and terrible. I remember my sister, she's a teacher, a high school teacher in West Virginia, and she's had to do them before. And it's just completely mortified by the fact they even have to. But the fact that your students are expected to be like people that are trained to disarm an assailant. I mean, in a classroom where you're just supposed to be learning is wild to me. And I think that the premise that this is not just a harmful, traumatic situation because you could be a victim, but also that you could be someone with blood on your hands is a terrifying reality. What so without giving away a lot about the book, like what are some of the takeaways you hope readers take from it? I mean, obviously it's an extremely heavy subject matter.
Hmm. Definitely. I guess I don't want to make I'm not trying to make arguments about guns here. I mean,
Hmm.
people have made up their minds about that, but what I want people to take away is that people are affected forever by these situations, that the trauma sticks with people. And I think because the media is the media, because these happen so often, you get a few days with cameras there, you see people at their worst, and then we stop thinking about them. And I want readers to understand it doesn't end when the cameras are gone, not for the people directly involved. And here we get to see these four people in the classroom who it doesn't end for them there. And each of them has really a level of PTSD that affects each of them differently. So it doesn't affect just them, it affects the other people at the school, it affects the town, and then of course all of us who are watching and having to think about this outside of there, it is a trauma for everybody.
Yeah. I think it's also emblematic that it can happen anywhere, like no matter how big or small your community is. I mean, I've never been a witness or a victim of a mass shooting, but I've lived in places where it's happened. Like in
Yeah.
Nashville, I moved away like 2 years after I moved from Nashville. There was the Covenant school shooting, and I
Yes.
a friend of mine had a daughter that was in a classroom where, thank God, the shooter didn't reach, but her
Mhm.
daughter has to deal with that trauma for the rest of her life. And it is something, you're absolutely correct, that people don't talk as much about. You think like once it's over, we move on, but we don't. But we're expected to, because it's just like part of the the reality of living in this country. I want to touch gears a little bit and ask you about how you weave in aspects of Appalachia to it, because I'm assuming that there's a reason deliberately that you want to set it in a fictional town in West Virginia. What was your thinking with that, and what are some of the narrative elements that are present in the book?
Well, so I'm a university teacher and I have been for, I think, 20 plus years now. But I wanted it to be at a community college, and I especially wanted it in Appalachia and specifically where I'm from, because I think the town itself revolves around extractive industries and the unemployment and the lack of opportunity beyond that sometimes happens. And I really wanted this town to have a community college where we'd have people of all ages. So while we have a couple young people, we also have a couple older people. I mean, older, they're in their 40s, who are experiencing the same thing. And I think the way it plays out here is that each of the place itself affects how the characters respond to it. So, for example, Priscilla, a 19-year-old young woman who is a single mother, she's trying to figure out which way is up, and she's living in this economically depressed area. She doesn't know what's happening next. She doesn't know what her life's going to look like, and she starts going toward the media. And it's part her mom who's pushing her in that direction, but also it is this question of what can I gain here? What can I get? How can I find my way in the midst of this? And I'm not sure if in a region with lots of opportunities, she would have reacted the same way. And Miller, one of the other characters, the only reason he's at the college to begin with is because he's been laid off from the mines and he's been out of work, and he's just trying to find a way forward for his family. He's trying to, make sure he can pay his child support and his rent at the same time and fix his truck. So he's looking for this opportunity. And this opportunity just blows up in his face, and he feels so stuck in the midst of it. And I'm not sure we'd have that same and I'm sure there are plenty of places. This could be lots of different places without a lot of economic opportunity. But the place that I know best is rural West Virginia. So I think if I were setting it where I live now in Greenville, South Carolina, it wouldn't be the same story, because the city is it's growing so quickly, and there are so many opportunities here, and you can find different things, and they might not all be perfect, but there are opportunities for people. And I think when you're in a fracking town where most of the money is leaving, and you're an out of work coal miner, it's you have very different opportunities available to you.
Yeah. Is that kind of similar to the real life situation in that area now? Like, is there a community college? Is that do most people that graduate from the local high schools they go into the extractive industries, or is it a little bit more mixed?
Um, the extractive industries have closed down a lot in
Mm-hmm.
really the last, say, 50 years, but I've watched it more and more. I'm always surprised when people I went to high school with, and of course I graduated in the late 90s, and I'm always surprised when they're still in coal mining. And I think, really? But I know so many people who again and again are laid off, or they try to get in and they're laid off. So it feels, and there is a community college there. I have a friend who teaches at the local community college and loves it there, and it provides all of these opportunities for so many people. My nephew went there trying to figure out what is my next step, because we're often told, and it is a fiction, I think, that it's extractive industries or nothing. I think there are other opportunities, but I think we have a hard time in some of these areas, and we're told that there's nothing there except
Right.
for extractive industries. It's no, 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 it's coal mining or nothing, especially by politicians. And it's no, 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 that isn't all that exists, but we have to invest in these places in really different ways. And my hometown, I watch a small group of people. They are really trying to invest on social media all the time. I see all of the work they're trying to do in bringing in small businesses, but it's also a town that has very few coal mines. It's what, 30-mile or 30-minute drive to the interstate. People aren't going there. It has a major drug problem. So how do you breathe new life into places like this?
Yeah, I realize this is like kind of off topic from your book, but it's a really interesting issue that I think is challenging, especially for West Virginia. I feel the same way about Parkersburg, where I grew up. So
Mhm.
many parts of West Virginia, number one, are just hard to reach. It's just like so much of the state is very hard to access. But more than that, like there there's a sense of hopelessness, but so many of these places have so much potential. Parkersburg is like right on the river. It can be a really beautiful town, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of potential in that town. And I think there's a lot of people that are trying to do that, like you mentioned, with investing in tourism, trying to revitalize
Yes.
their downtown, bring in small businesses, those types of things. But you have to be able to draw people there for a reason. And I remember like for people like my dad when he was temporarily laid off because they were locked out of his plant. He was trying to find other jobs in the area, but it was impossible because he was a 55-year-old man who just worked one job his entire life. So I
Yep.
understand the feeling of hopelessness in these places, but it's also like you can't. The local leadership can't give up, and they have to be innovative. And I think there's a lot of places in West Virginia, and I speak from this partly from experience of meeting a lot of or working with a lot of like local officials, is that they don't know what to do. There's just not like the desire to really be strongly innovative in these places, but which is a shame because there is so much potential. And West Virginia is just such a beautiful place and a beautiful state that I think so many people, if they would want to stay in their hometown if they could.
Well, and I think that's right. Like the last time I was in Parkersburg, I was like, and it was actually one of the few times I've ever been there. I was like, this is a great little city, like small town little city. We went to this brewery and had some beers and had dinner there, and it was great. I We were doing the exchange with my stepdaughter and her mom, and it
Mm-hmm.
was awesome. We were like, this is great. And I'm like, I'd like to come back here. This is a place with a lot that could be happening. And of course, I have so many friends who they say, oh, West Virginia is beautiful. And I'm like, it is. It is. And I think if we invested even more in the tourism industry, I think it would help. I of course don't have the answers, but how do we make these places more accessible? You know, so many people tell me, well, I drove up 79. So I know Tamarack. I see some places off of 79. And I'm like, yeah, my hometown's another 15 miles off of 79, which takes 30 minutes to get to from the interstate. So how do you make a town like that a place that people really want to go to? And I don't know the answer. Recently, there was this giant mansion in Mannington that somebody has completely renovated, and now it's an event space, and apparently it's doing really well. It's called the
Hmm.
Bowers Mansion, and they have weddings there and parties and anniversary parties and teas and all sorts of stuff. And like, somebody sees this, and every time I drive by when I'm visiting, it seems to be doing well. And I hope it continues to, because I'm thinking if we can get small, out of the way places like this, little inns like this, can we revitalize the area and make stuff happen?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I'm with you. I don't really have the answers to that, and it's difficult because to get people to come, you have to be able to get there. And I just remember like the first time I ever flew into any West Virginia airport was like 2 years ago,
Hmm.
which tells you a lot about things. And it was a small airport in Clarksburg, and there wasn't even like a rental car facility or anything. You just kind of walk out and you're there. And so it's like there's issues like that all around the state. But it's a shame because there's so much potential. So um I want to briefly get back to your book though, because I meant to ask you this in the beginning, so maybe I'll cut and paste this and put it in the beginning. But how did you come up with the name Stonecatchers? What's that a reference to?
So actually, I have to give complete credit to my husband here. My husband James, we were going over titles, and I kept coming up with different titles, and they kept just not quite working, either giving too much away or not enough. And I was in some of the final drafts, and he started talking about sin eaters, and stone catchers as sin eaters. So the people who kind of serve as these frontline people who take the sins in of others or catch the stones that others are throwing at them.
Oh.
And I loved the idea of these four people become the face of this shooting. So no matter what you think about the shooting, so many people were involved in it. So many people were on campus at the time that it happened. So many people were in that classroom, but these four people become the front line. They become the people we're looking at. And if anybody has anything bad to say, they're going to throw stones at them. They're going to blame them. They're going to praise them. And it doesn't matter who else was involved. Everything, they are the face. And I love the idea of these four people catching all of those stones. And I like the idea of stone catchers even more than sin eaters, because stone catchers, like, stones are heavy and they hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And these people are again and again and again hurt and burdened by what's happened to them.
Yeah. I've never heard the term sin eater before, but I really like that, and I like the play off of that because honestly, so many people are throwing stones at each other as just in general these days that
Hmm.
it's extremely relatable. Um, I really love the premise of this book. It's obviously extremely heavy subject matter, and it's something where like you know you mentioned that in the first chapter or two, like there's a school shooting, so like you start out of the gate really heavy, but I think that this is the premise of it's a really important one, and it sounds really interesting. I'm curious, as my last question to you, for people that are interested in this book, what I know that I've kind of already asked this question one way, but I'm hoping to get your take on it. What do you want their one takeaway to be? If you could boil it down to one thing for readers who want to read this, what do you hope that their singular takeaway would be from this?
That is singular takeaway. I mean, I think what I want them to I think I want to ask people to experience the trauma. I it is a heavy book. There is nothing that is really light about it. I hope I think we have some hope by the end, but these people are really burdened by everything they've been through, and I want my readers to stand in to kind of walk in their shoes. I want empathy. I want empathy for these people and a level of understanding, even for those of us who haven't been directly involved in school shootings. Like you, I've been near them. I was actually on lockdown during the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh.
Oh
I
boy.
was at I was at the 50th anniversary of the creative writing program at Carnegie Mellon University, which was less than a mile away. And we were talking that morning, and suddenly, like, we were on lockdown, and it was horrifying. And it was not knowing what's happening. And everybody was traumatized in different ways, even from a distance. And I think here I'm asking people to walk in those shoes for a few minutes, especially people who say, and maybe it is, and I don't want to say especially those people, I think anyone to say, this is what it is to be traumatized horribly. This is what it means to go through that and then to hopefully move forward with your life. And I almost said move out of it, but you don't move out of that trauma. You learn to live within it and around it, and you learn to make that a part of you and to experience these people making this horrifying experience a part of who they are into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a ton of sense. And I for one, am excited to read it. So I think when this episode comes out, it will be published. The book will be published.
Yes.
I know it's through University of Kentucky Press. Is that the best place for people to get the book? Or is there a local bookstore that will be carrying it that you want to plug?
Here in Greenville, M. Judson Bookstore is our bookstore in downtown Greenville. They will be carrying it. I have a reading there on the 20th. On the 27th, I'm going out to Hub City Books in bookstore in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And they're also just an amazing publisher. So buying from some of these local stores is fantastic. I'm hoping Monkey Wrench will have it up in Morgantown, West Virginia, since that's home. I'm hoping to do a reading up there at some point, but these are just, I order from UPK or go to your local bookstore, ask them if they have it. They can order it if they don't, but I'm always, local bookstores matter and
Absolutely.
independent bookstores matter. And I think going in and looking around at what they have and also asking them for it if they don't have it. Most bookstores are happy to order whatever you want, and they're happy to see you in the store again and again.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you mentioned Monkey Wrench. I think they're getting ready to do a grand opening here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's very exciting. We've been posting about books that are better than Hillbilly Elegy every day up until the election. I've been trying to find different local bookstores to plug that will have those books. So I'm going to do the same with this one for sure.
Yeah.
Laura, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book. I'm really excited to read it. I know a lot of our listeners will be too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on. And I can't wait to hear the episode and just to, see what happens next.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. All right. That was great. I am very happy with this and very excited. Great interview. Wonderful interview. Go get The Stonecatcher's great book, University of Kentucky Press. It's published today if you're listening to this, so check it out. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Big John, Big Jehovah, Big Jehovah's Witness himself with the beef this week. And I don't know what it is, so I'm ready to be wowed.
I don't know if it's going to be wowed. It's pretty simple. I just found out from Chuck that I say that a lot, which I legitimately had no idea that I say this beef is simple. Coming to a shirt near you probably, because now if I can, now that I know that, that's gonna be on me.
There's gonna be an entire episode. It's like, this beef is fucking complicated.
That's exactly. Prepare for a 45-minute beef.
Deconstructing the region, cultural region of Appalachia.
It's the smartest I ever sound. I've got statistics. It's back to my bait days. I'm just laying it out.
Standing in front of a whiteboard.
I've got a podium. I don't know where I'm going to get a podium, but I have one in the stream. Anyway,
we'll find one.
Very simple. This is we're starting to see. I say starting. We've seen it throughout as she's been vice president, and I'm sure you've seen this, but I've seen a lot in rural areas the most, and I hate to say that, but that's where I've seen a lot of these. Like, I've seen huge signs, is how I should put it, where people are sexualizing Kamala Harris. This seems to be a very so I take it you've seen this because based off your facial expressions.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it, and I've read a lot of reporting about how the gender gap for this election is going to be the widest it's ever been.
Exactly.
This is part of the reason why.
Exactly. So throughout the entire time that she's ever run, essentially, on a national stage, people have sexualized her throughout. They've talked to her, I believe everybody, you've probably seen the bumper stickers, Joe and the hoe, that kind of stuff, or, Joe and blow, whatever. Dumb shit, right? But male politicians are not facing the same thing. It is specifically labeled for female politicians at the national level, and it's coming from one side. That's the thing here. It's very one-sided. You don't hear this from Democrats or progressives. It's becoming so ridiculous that I believe it's something that Democrats can take and turn, and if they're able to successfully do that, could be a very groundbreaking reason that Harris wins the election, by essentially turning sexism on the people who are doing it. I believe that they have that ability. I believe that they could do that. It's going to take time. But I saw it at the courthouse today, and that's what really inspired this beef. We saw it with Hillary. We're seeing it with Kamala. I guess this is just like a beef that reminds us that although we think we've come very far, we haven't really walked super far away from our past. And slowly every day we're walking towards the past even more, because this is a continuing effort on one side to do this kind of stuff. And do I think that it's a majority of people? No. But I also have talked about in the past how she has an uphill race based off of the sex gap, or gender gap, I should say, sorry. The gender gap. And it's one of those things where she's going to have to overcome it. But I really do think that she can take this hatred and sexism and turn it, flip it, and move masses to vote for her. And it could be something that essentially could lay the foundation for female politicians' success at the national level as we move forward. So really the beef here, like I said, very simple. Stop the stupid... I'm so sick of where politics is today. No one has anything to say. Yeah. No one has any positions that are real. No one has any solutions that are real. No one actually could tell you why they support the politician they do. It's either just because it's cool, which in West Virginia, if you look, supporting Donald Trump is cool. Like, people, it is like a club, man, and they love to be in it. That needs to be something that Democrats come together and try to flip and use as an advantage to themselves, and essentially stop allowing it to go unnoticed. Because, I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah. I think it's really shameful. And honestly, if I don't know people that have those signs or shirts or whatever. If I did, it's embarrassing. And
that's exactly right. Yeah.
I would be embarrassed if someone I knew was wearing that or had one of those signs. And it makes me really sad for the next generation of young boys, especially, that grow up with a dad that's got a Joe and the Ho sticker or saying something misogynistic about Kamala Harris. It's just pathetic and stupid and weak-minded and childish. And I think that that's a lot of what symbolizes politics on the right these days, with Donald Trump especially. It's this petty, childish name-calling bullshit. And we had a lot of fun with the couch jokes with JD Vance because he is fucking weird. But there's a difference between that and these personal, denigrating things like this that is deeply rooted in sexism. And sexism is deeply rooted in the fabric of our society. Women didn't even have the right to vote till the 20s. And they couldn't even get a bank account or a credit card until later. And so it really pisses me off. I'm not super surprised, but I agree. I think that this could be a moment to really address it in a way that's thoughtful and not making herself out to be the victim, because, and it will take some political skill to do that. But I think that she has it. I've been extremely impressed with her deftness these past couple weeks and with Tim Walz's deftness. And so I think that there's an opportunity there to rise above that and to dismiss it as this childish bullshit that it is. And hopefully they'll do it, and hopefully that message will get through and less people will do it, because Donald Trump will latch onto that kind of stuff if he sees it as something that's actively helping him. He'll do it. Because he has.
And
I mean, he's made tons of comments about, what is it, the Wall Street Journal? Some publication did a drawing of her, and he was like, "Oh, she looks so fucking hot," like that kind of thing.
yeah, I mean that's what he does, and to I guess develop something you said. You said that you worried about the generation of men that are coming next. I worry about the generation of girls coming next. Because here's the thing. Imagine you're a little girl
100%.
and your dad has that shit on his truck or on his shirt or his hat or shit, a flag on your house. Like, imagine that, man. Like,
how do you explain that to your daughter? Like, that's
right,
so
yeah.
ridiculous.
How do you differentiate between your daughter and Harris? You have no proof that Harris has ever done shit like this. All you do is sexualize her because she's a woman. That's really all it is.
And
you're doing that in front of right, and you're doing that in front of your daughter. Like you're doing that, and essentially letting your daughter know that every time that she is ever in a position that your feeling is always that she's going to be less than. She'll always be less than the man next to her. That's the feeling that you're giving your daughter because you don't know how to develop actual feelings and how to essentially help your child develop because you're setting them back by doing that stuff.
And that women aren't allowed to be in positions of power.
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah. You're 100% right, and it's embarrassing, and it's a shame that this is even a thing, but sadly it is, and I hope that there are people that call that out. I really do. I hope the campaign calls it out, but I hope that the individuals do too. Police your own community when it comes to that. Like, this stuff is unacceptable and it's stupid, and it doesn't extend or lend to any conversation about politics and about bettering people's lives, and I think that it's obvious. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a great beef. Very simple. You're right. Very simple, but great.
Very simple. Wanted to keep it simple today. I've never thought about keeping it simple, but this is going to be a very simple beef.
We're keeping it so simple. So, fuck sexism.
Yeah.
And you know what? I just hope that Kamala Harris wins because that will be a giant middle finger to all those people. So,
yeah,
great.
It'll be very funny.
It will be very satisfying for many ways. And,
yeah.
what will also be satisfying is for our fan base to crowdfund our trip to Taiwan that is not currently banned by the Monongalia School Board. So please help us out. And
we don't have to make a wish list.
We don't even have to make a wish list.
It's just one item.
Just 2 plane tickets. That's it. 2
plane tickets. We'll pay for our own buffets.
I'll sleep there because we'll get into a food coma. It's fine, guys.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening, and we are serious about that. Thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you all next week.
Bye-bye.